Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to HBCU Game Day. We are talking hoops, and joining me is the Hoop Squad. It is Liv For Hoops, our HBCU basketball insider. We're just claiming it. We're calling it because she knows everything about HBCU hoops. We're going to get into that. But first, Liv, we have some breaking news, and that goes to Jackson, Mississippi, where Wilton Jackson joins us from his brand new office as a brand new full-time faculty member at Jackson State University. No more adjunct business. This is the full-time professor. Wilton Jackson, congratulations, man.
Nah, I appreciate it, Tolly. I'm glad to be here. I mean, you know the journey. I've been an adjunct professor for several years now, starting all the way back to 2019, and now it's full time. So I'm just glad to be here, and glad to still do what I love to do.
All right, tell us. Take them back full screen. Show what you got. You're decorating. I see you're sticking with the sports theme there.
I am. I have so much stuff, and like I don't have my WNBA stuff up yet. So the little that I could grab to kind of get things set up, I've tried to do that, but I have a long way to go to make it feel like Wilton's space.
All right, and what are you teaching at Jackson State now?
So some sports journalism courses. One of them is cross-platform sports writing, reporting, sports culture. Those are the two main courses for now.
All right. Well, let's keep it in Jackson before we jump into Liv and all these hoops. Let's talk a little football because this week it just dropped in my inbox like on a random Monday morning at 10 o'clock. Jackson State, Tennessee State will play football once again, not in the Southern Heritage Classic, but in the John Merritt Classic. Big football news to start the week, Wilton.
No, absolutely. This is a game, Tolly, and I said this on a previous show yesterday. This is a game that should have never left Jackson State or Tennessee State's football schedule, and now we finally get it back. Two historic HBCU programs getting a chance to play on the gridiron again. It's going to be a week 0 matchup next year. It's going to be in Nashville next year, and then in the previous season in 2027, it's going to be in Jackson. So, and the last time these two teams played was September 10th, 2022. Of course, you may remember that's the Deion Sanders final Jackson State, Tennessee State game, and that's also Eddie George. And I was actually at that game. It was a really tight matchup. Of course, Jackson State came out to get the victory 16-3, but just the pageantry. Of course, then it was the Southern Heritage Classic. And I mean, just the fact that even though it's not the Southern Heritage Classic anymore, this is a game that Jackson State fans never wanted it to go away. And also Tennessee State fans as well. So getting a chance to get these two historic programs back, I just think is going to be great for not only both teams, but also just great for HBCU football in general.
Hey, that's going to be one of the places to be in week 0, Nashville for Jackson State and Tennessee State, the John Merritt Classic. Looking forward to that. We'll talk about that throughout the spring, throughout the summer, but let's talk a little hoops now. Let's go ahead and get into the Wednesday schedule because as we sit here and talk to you now, we are getting ready for some CIAA and some SIAC action, mostly the SIAC. These are all doubleheaders. Let's welcome Liv For Hoops back into the conversation. Liv, it's been quite a week. Wednesday has a lot to live up to because our SWAC Monday really threw me for a loop. I'm still trying to figure out who I would put my money on. What's the overall vibe of this week, HBCU hoops, Liv?
I mean, it was chaos. It was complete chaos from Thursday, Saturday to Monday. We were thoroughly entertained. If you did not tune in and catch any of the action, you really missed out on an amazing week 2. Teams that we didn't expect to win won. The balls were dropped. We saw amazing individual performances, back to back. We saw players going bucket for bucket. This is what I love about HBCU basketball because it was pure entertainment. You couldn't turn away from one game because the second you did, suddenly the team was caught back up and then was in the lead. And then you go back to the other game and suddenly they're in the lead. It was just complete chaos is the best way to describe week 2.
All right, let's talk about one of those games that provided a little chaos. The Southern women falling to FAMU. Wilton, I did not have that on my bingo card at all. I think I actually said somewhere on one of these platforms that Southern might just run the table through the SWAC, and that stopped pretty quickly at FAMU.
No, it did. This is a FAMU team that was hungry to get a win against Southern. And if you've really been paying attention to FAMU, this is a team that could have won some other games prior to them playing Southern. And so I think that you found a FAMU team that finally put it together late down the stretch. And able to get a win against a really, really good Southern team. We're talking about a Southern team, as you said, Tolly, the team that's pretty much the team to beat, and everybody's pretty much gunning for them. And so you had players like Tanaja Purivoy for FAMU that really, really stepped up. She finished with 21 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals. Shania McCarthy had 10 points and 7 rebounds. And of course, they had some other contributors as well. But I think the biggest key for FAMU down the stretch was their defense. Like, they held Southern to 34.4% shooting from the field. They absolutely crushed the boards as well. They had like 11 offensive rebounds. So this was a FAMU team, and Coach kind of talked about it after the game on the broadcast. This was a team that she was wanting to see if her players were going to put it together to, essentially come out with the victory at the end. Of course, there have been times where you can play, a good first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and Liv knows this. She played basketball before. It's a game of runs. And so with that, can you finish a game strong? And FAMU was able to do that against a really, really talented Southern team on Saturday.
Well, Liv, I know you weren't too upset that FAMU upset Southern, being a former Rattler with over 1,700 career points on the hardwood. Should Southern fans, 2 questions, should Southern fans be worried, and should FAMU fans find a little more hope?
I definitely don't think Southern fans should be worried. What I saw from them, and kudos to FAMU for the game they put together, but I saw very uncharacteristic things happen throughout that game that Southern did, like shooting 24 threes. That's not typical of what we see from a Carlos Funch's team. They had 19 turnovers. That is not something we typically see from a Carlos Funch's team. And so I think they regrouped, they will bounce back, and, we'll still see that competitive Southern. But, you, as Wilton said, everyone's gunning for you. You're the returning champs, not only regular season, but conference tournament. You had success in out of conference. And so everyone wants to beat you. And to be honest, everyone in the SWAC wants to beat anyone. And we've seen multiple takedowns now in these early weeks. And so you can't come out and play lackadaisical. You can't come in and look past anybody in this conference. And that just showed that. I really don't think Southern fans should be worried. And on the other hand, I do think Florida A&M alum and fans should be excited about where they are. In the early game versus Bethune-Cookman, we saw FAMU essentially throw the game away and unable to finish, which is something we saw over the last 2 seasons with them, the inability to finish close games. And so for them to take that loss in Daytona, come back and sweep the Louisiana teams, which were both close contests and, good quality teams, that's kudos to them and a great foundation to continue through the conference schedule.
Yeah, FAMU literally threw the game away against Bethune-Cookman on an inbounds pass. Threw it to Bethune-Cookman, who then scored in the late seconds there. Liv, I want to come back to you. First, let's jump back over to Wilton, because there's 2 teams I want to know about. Have we learned more as we get another week of conference play under our belt? Sticking with the women in the SWAC, Alabama A&M, Jackson State. Wilton, what have you learned in the last week about the Jackson State women?
They're still learning how to win, essentially, and they are. And again, it reminds me so much of what I saw in the beginning of the season last year in Coach Margaret Richards' first year. You saw a bunch of players again playing on a team, but you could tell that the continuity and the chemistry wasn't there. And so with this recent win that they got against Alabama State, you started to see it click. You started to see a lot of their rotations and sets that they're running on offense and defense start to come together, and that's what you want. Like the first couple of weeks, and we talked about this last week. The first couple of weeks of January, after a brutal non-conference schedule, you're like, okay, we're starting conference play. We kind of know where we are in a way, but we really don't, because the teams that we're about to face, these are the teams that we're going to have to beat to be able to compete and or get a chance to compete in the SWAC tournament. So you're almost like starting your season over. And so in a way, it's like Jackson State right now, 1-2 in SWAC play, and they have a chance to essentially kind of build on this win for Alabama State as almost like a stepping stone to see how well they will continue to go throughout the season. And this week they'll get another test. They get a Texas Southern team. We know what Coach Skeet is doing with Texas Southern, what she's building there. No shortage of talent there. So I'm really excited to see how Jackson State will be able to build on that win against Alabama State.
Liv, can Jackson State contend this year? And also tell us about Alabama A&M. A lot of people excited about that program. Then they lose that game to Valley, and you're like, what's going on here? Tell us about those two.
So I think with Jackson State, the biggest issue or thing that I really want them to focus on is their turnovers. That was a big sore spot for me last year with them, is being able to control the ball, because it just was taking so many additional possessions away from them. I think they have two really good players in Rima and Massanet with their shooting ability. And if they can just limit their turnovers, like we shouldn't be 15 plus every single game. I think they will be in that top 4 like we saw them last year, but it's really going to come down to that. Can they consistently defend, and can they just not turn the ball over? It really is, for me, that simple for them, is just keeping the ball in their hands. And then with Alabama A&M, I think we saw a wake-up call. I do think people are like underestimating Valley and who they are. I was quite shocked that they were preseason 12th, considering the success that the interim head coach James had last season, securing a SWAC tournament win, and then he was named head coach. I think they're way better than people give them, as we saw. Like, they beat Alabama A&M. They really played a close contest with Texas Southern as well, but that was the wake-up call, clearly, that Alabama A&M needed, because we saw them head to UAPB and completely dominate them from tip to end. And then they turned around and did the same exact thing to Alcorn. Like, they were up by as many as, it was like 28 points. It might have been 40. I really don't remember off the top of my head. But it was like, that was the team we were expecting in that game versus Valley. But it's okay. Like, you win some, you lose some. It's how you grow and how you respond. And that's what they did. They responded. And the way they played these past 2 games, they are looking like one of the ultimate contenders in this conference, especially if they keep getting that play from Moses Davenport. If she continues being that dominant, especially because, the SWAC isn't a very post-heavy talent-wise conference, they are going to be a handful come March.
Yeah, Davenport has that experience playing for the Diva with a couple of stops there. Let's switch over to the MEAC. Liv, UMES. Did they just snatch the throne away just like that?
No, I would have to say I'm very they showed what they're capable of this year. And, shout out to Coach Willis for what she's doing in just year 2. I think they're showing that they're a true contender, because a lot of people just place them in that 3rd place box. Like, that's where they're going to be. But I can't necessarily give them that yet until they win it. And I think she knows that. And when she does her post-game interviews, and any interview she does, she gives all the credit to, Coach Ty Grace, Norfolk State program, and knowing that they still have a long way to go. But what a foundation to set of beating Howard, beating Norfolk State, and now you sit as the lone number 1 seed. So, they made their life a lot easier come the second time they have to play teams, because they went 1 up on all of them. So definitely, for sure, securing their place as a contender possibility. But I'd love to see how they continue to progress and what it looks like the second time around that they play both of those teams.
All right, so we have Division II doubleheaders on Wednesday night. Let's take a look at that Thursday schedule. The women will take center court and get our full attention. Tennessee State will be a doubleheader, though. Over in the OVC, they do play their doubleheaders throughout the week. You got the Bethune-Cookman women taking on UAPB. How do you like this? And we'll just keep scrolling through the games. Liv, I'm curious, having played, men go Monday, Saturday in the SWAC, and the women, they go Thursday, Saturday. Do you like that Thursday, Saturday momentum, or you like stretching it out a little bit?
I feel like I've said this so many times on so many different platforms. I do not like the Thursday, Saturday, Monday. It's just a personal preference. I really enjoyed the doubleheaders, and I liked the Saturday. Monday format, even if they would have went Thursday, Monday. I personally didn't find it necessary to split them up, but I think they're making the most of it and giving people the opportunity to dedicate their time to watching the women on Thursday, watching the men on Monday. But I personally, I didn't find it necessary to make that adjustment in these conferences.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of either. Let's see the rest of that Thursday schedule so the fans at home can see who's playing on Thursday night. Wilton, that one thing I loved about the HBCU experience from the very beginning, when it comes to sports, particularly basketball. Look, you're one ticket, man. You get two for the price of one.
Yep.
And at the Power 5 level, which we watched, growing up as kids, many of us. Women over here, men over there. I like that energy between the women's game and the men's game when everybody's packed in there. Man, you can't beat that.
No, you can't. And it's like you have this energy, especially for a lot of the women's teams. And we're starting to see, the growth of women's basketball just continue to grow from just within recent years, and to see that energy carry over into the men's games. Because again, I can remember going into some of the women's games just within HBCU basketball. We could just go all the way back to maybe 2017, 2018. And not that the Coliseums were just fully empty, but they just weren't as packed as they are now. And then by the time the men's games start, honestly, Tolly, in some places, you may find that there's some more of the women's games that are packed out more than some of the men's games. I mean, just based off the fact of depending on what teams are playing, number one. And then number two is just the fact of sometimes, to me, and like I said, I'm more of a person who covers a lot more women's basketball now than men's. It's just there's a lot more excitement on the women's game now versus the men's side. And not even just within the HBCU level, but just overall within, when you start talking about collegiate level, Division I, Division II, it's just a lot more exciting. But to your point, getting a chance to kind of carry that energy over and see, fans excited about both teams. And then to your point, from a financial standpoint, you don't have to get a second ticket for another game on a Monday when you could just see both games right then and there.
Yeah. The DJ plays that first song in the warm-up line for them.
Yes.
Man,
and then the whole gym has just turned crazy.
Yeah. But hey, we had our time. We lived it. You guys try some different things. Let's talk about men's hoops. Liv, North Carolina Central men. Where did they come from? They were quiet in the preseason, but once MEAC conference play started, oh man, Lavelle Moulton had his boys ready to go. They're off to a hot start.
And I think that's what we just have to remember, who their head coach is and the history that he's had. I don't think Coach Moulton was going to go down without his team putting up a fight. And, they have some very talented guards like Gage Lattimore, Jay Slack. They have a good post player in Corey Carvey. And so they had the pieces. I think that, they battled some injury. They had some tough games trying to figure out roles, trying to make adjustments. And then to come into conference play and start 3-0, it's a great foundation, and to have a win over Norfolk State. So when you're going up against these teams now, again, I said before, you make your life a lot easier by winning those early ones on, because it sets you up better down the line. So to have early success for them and have it figured out now, not fully, but they figured out the pieces they needed to win these games, that now they're not having to fight and claw and, go all out in February in order to get the best seeding possible. And so I just won't look past a Lavelle Moulton team, because I just know what he can do. And clearly the pieces just needed to click, and they clicked that first game of MEAC play.
Wilton, Daeshun Ruffin, Jackson State, preseason SWAC Player of the Year. We saw some, offensive performances across the league. Hey, this Player of the Year thing, who knows where it's going to go? But Ruffin had to remind us, Wilton, he is the preseason SWAC Player of the Year. The last 3 games, he's gone for 30 plus. Wilton, if you just ran into Ruffin on the street and somebody was like, hey, this guy's one of the best basketball, you're like, come on, man. He might be all right. Ain't no way he going out there dropping 30. Not the biggest guy, but the biggest game.
Tolly, listen. If somebody said that, I would say, hey, don't let that hype fool you. He'll cross you and he'll shoot on you, and he may not dunk on you, but he has hops to get to the rim. I guarantee you that. And for someone like myself, being in Jackson, I got a chance to see him do this at Callaway. It's a high school in the inner city of Jackson, Mississippi. So a lot of the things that we're seeing him do at Jackson State, he did a lot of these things in high school, except of course it's a lot more, revamped and, for the collegiate level. And again, we know where he started his career at the D1 level before coming to Jackson State. So this is a guy who is absolutely uber talented. I know, Liv, you had him as one of your essentially SWAC preseason players of the year for, coming into this season. So, and he's basically letting us know that, like, okay, you picked me, I'm going to live up to the standard. And like that game against Alabama A&M between him and Contavious Dozier, oh my gosh. Like, if you love basketball and scoring, and I have a lot of respect for Contavious Dozier. Like, both of them had 30-point games. But that right there, two incredible electric guards just going at it, I just thought it was phenomenal. And for Jackson State to continue to grow and continue to go well, and if they want to go into a deep season run to end well and going into the SWAC tournament, it's going to start and begin, obviously, with Daeshun Ruffin.
Liv, is it a recipe for success to ride one player's scoring shoulders like that? Do you think he needs some more help? Can he just get hot and take them through there when they get to Atlanta? What do you think, Liv?
I definitely think it would be extremely helpful if they had a few people consistently join the party, because I think regardless, Daeshun Ruffin's going to get his points. Like, he's shown that going 39, 34, 32, all the buckets that he's capable of scoring, but it makes them an even bigger threat when they have other people who other teams have to fully respect. And that's what basketball comes down to. If you're a player who, like, back in my day, we used to say, like, a pink bunny, where like you didn't even have to guard them or really worry about them.
Wait, a pink bunny? What's this?
Yeah, just because like, I think it has some, like, they're soft a little bit, and I'm not saying that about the other Jackson State players at all, so please don't take that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, when you have other threats around you who then the defense has to stay connected to them, it's not as likely as they can help out over on Ruffin and cause him to kick it out or anything. They have to play solid defense. I think it would be great if because they definitely have the pieces that can score the ball. We just have to see it on a more consistent basis. But he's going to get his buckets and keep Jackson State in every single game if it's up to him. But this season is grueling, and everyone knows the SWAC is extremely physical. It's high tempo, and the season can wear and tear on you. So if other people aren't stepping up, and he's averaging 35 plus minutes a game, it will be a lot more difficult for them than, say, if we have like Dorian McMillan, who can shoot, who is a really good scoring addition. I'd love to see him, in those teams every single game for them. So we'll see how they adjust, because it's not going to get easier for Daeshun. I know he's going to get his buckets, but the defense is really going to be focused on him.
Wilton, if we are playing at the Y and I get the ball and somebody says, pink bunny, we got to throw hands, Wilton. Like, that sounds like the ultimate diss on the basketball court. Pink bunny with the ball. Open for a reason.
I get what Liv was saying, but I'm like you, Tyler. I'm like, man, if I don't know what that means, I'm like, dang, what's going on?
It ain't good. It doesn't sound like he can jump high. That does not sound like the connotation that is there. All right, we got a big Saturday. Everybody's on the court Saturday. Miles, roll it. You can let it roll all the way to the end. We'll just talk over it. Let's see who is in action on Saturday. Tennessee State, Tennessee State's not doing bad. We got to show them some love. But when you get to the SWAC, Liv, I know one of these matchups we're going to see on the screen here in a second. We got SIAC, CIAA, SWAC, MEAC. If we get Prairie View, Jackson State, Joseph, and Ruffin. Now, Joseph has been out, but if we get both of those on Saturday, it could be a Saturday for the ages.
I think we're definitely going to see what we saw when it was Contavious Dozier and Daeshun Ruffin, two elite scorers who can light it up in multiple different ways going at it. Now, they won't guard each other because Joseph is about like 6'3", and, Daeshun is, I think he's listed at 5'10". Yeah. So they won't guard each other, but we will see elite scoring, high level. It will be super entertaining if Joseph returns. So I really hope he's good and his injury is fine, because that's a game I want to see, is how are they going to, answer bucket for bucket. I love when we can see someone go down, score a bucket, and then the player's like, oh, okay, watch this. And then they go down,
Like,
And
wait a minute, I got a bucket for you.
yes, like I'm gonna one up you now. So that's basically what that game is setting up to be. They're the number 1 and number 2 SWAC leading scorers. They're also the number 1 and number 2 in all of Division 1. And so that will be a treat for sure.
Can Prairie View be in that title picture? Do you think that's a team that people are going to have to respect throughout the season? I know they got off to a hot start, then they got a loss. Is that a team that, you know, can Byron get those boys back in the title hunt? It's been a few years.
Most definitely. And I think the game versus UAPB really showed me that they can contend for the title because Joseph was out, which takes out 23 points a game because that's what he's averaging. And other players stepped up. And the end score versus UAPB does not show how dominant Prairie View was that entire game and how they controlled it. And I think they showed the depth that they have at the post position, at the wings, other scores like Dante Horn, Lance Williams, Corey Wells. So they're deep. And when you have all those pieces clicking and the cylinders going, they for sure will be contenders. I think the SWAC is really full of teams that could contend for the title. It's going to come down to who can execute the best, who can stay healthy, and really everyone can play offense, so who can get the stops when it's most crucial to do so. But they for sure, in my opinion, Byron's got them there. He's just got to bring them all the way to the end now.
Wilton, how deep is the SWAC men at the top? How many teams, Wilton, would you say, I would not be surprised if they win the championship?
That's a tough question, Tyler. But in some cases, and to Leo's point, when you start talking about those Texas teams like Texas Southern, that's always a team to kind of think about. Prairie View with Coach Byron, that's a team that I'm not going to just write off because, again, any of these teams can get hot during the season. And if you finish the season hot and go into the SWAC tournament, typically that translates into the SWAC tournament. So I would say Prairie View, Texas Southern, Jackson State. I mean, let's not forget about the champs from last year in Alabama State. You know, there's 4. We know what Alabama A&M, where we know where they are right now, but we know what, you know, their coach now, Alabama A&M, former coach at Grambling, we know what he can do, Coach Dante. So you're talking about out of 12 teams, and I hadn't even said Charlie Ward at FAMU or Bethune-Cookman. So we're talking about at least 6 or 7 teams.
Oh, did he say 6, 7? 6, 7. Sorry.
It could be 6 or 7 teams, like they could really, really be in the mix depending on how the season unfolds.
Perfect segue, Liv, because he did not say Grambling. His Grambling for real. They went to Florida and went into Florida is like, hey, Grambling might be that team. They came out of Florida and like, what's going on here? So Liv, what is going on there at Grambling?
You know, I think winning in Moore Gymnasium, and I hate to give it to Bethune, it's really hard to win in that gym. So, you know, kudos to Southern for getting it done, but they have a great home court advantage there, and, you know, it's very difficult to win. And I think the FAMU game was a very high emotional game for Coach Prairie, and I thought we saw that throughout the game and different behaviors and actions that transpired.
Yeah, he got put out.
Yeah.
So
he was highly energized.
He was more highly energized than we know him for. And so
no pink bunny, Energizer bunny. That's what he was.
Yes. And so I think, you know, teams feed off the energy of their coach, whether it be positive or negative or indifferent. And I think Charlie Ward well prepared his team for that game and looked at, because, you know, they competed with Bethune very well. They were coming off a win against Southern. So they had the momentum kind of rolling with them, and they came ready to play, ready to fight. What Charlie Ward has showed us is that his team is not going to back down. And I feel like every time FAMU made a run, Grambling would sometimes answer and sometimes not, and they just weren't able to do the back and forth with FAMU, and Florida A&M was able to really secure it. I still think Grambling is a contender because I think, one, they're deep. They were missing their starting point guard, Roderick Coffey III, that game, which, you know, does make a difference, but you play with who you have. And they have length, athleticism. So I think the team that we've seen them as will be that, but, you know, you win some, you lose some, and they just happen to lose to the Rattlers. So
What has Charlie Ward shown us? Hard to get a read on what FAMU was going to be like. Look, Charlie Ward has the best poker face in all of sports. You don't know if he's excited, upset, mad. Like he's right there the whole time. What have you learned about FAMU, the men's team?
they're going to play hard. I said after their game versus Bethune, I said there's a difference between basketball players and hoopers. And I saw that from different players on his team. And when I say that, I mean, hoopers are people who take it personal. You know, they go out there, they're not just out there for clips and highlights and, you know, win or lose, they're indifferent. I saw players who truly wanted to go to war for Charlie Ward. And as a coach, that's what you want to see. Players who are going to dive on the floor, make adjustments, play hard. And that's what, you know, to sweep the state of Louisiana to start, you know, that to go 2-1 is an amazing start. And I believe the graphic said that's the best start since the 16-17 season in conference play. Might have been 17-18. But, you know, they clearly love playing for him and they're going to go all out. And you were right. We didn't know what we were going to get from this team with new pieces, old pieces who played under Coach Prairie while he was there. And so it seems like they're finding it. And sometimes when you have that underdog mentality, because everyone was kind of like, FAMU, you know, when it's a new coach, you're like, oh, it's a wash year. A lot of people will say that, like, you know, we want them to compete, but no expectations. And, you know, sometimes players are like, no, we're going to show you guys that we can compete in this league. We can finish in the top 8. We can handle business. And a great start for Charlie Ward to beat the returning regular season champs in Southern, and then a team that was seen as one of the hottest teams in all of HBCU basketball in Grambling.
Well, you see that smile that FAMU brings to Liv's face. So I will question Wilton next about Bethune-Cookman. I want to keep Liv smiling over here. Wilton, Dr. Bradley is back finally. He was the preseason SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, had some eligibility issues with the waiver with the NCAA. They got that worked out. We finally saw him on the court. Didn't play a whole lot. He's got to, you know, get back into the flow. What type of difference will he make for a team that a lot of people are taking seriously, even when he wasn't on the court in Bethune-Cookman?
Oh, he's going to make a big difference. And I think about a lot of what Liv said last week about him. And so the fact that he's back, you know, talking about right now, 7 points per game, 5 rebounds and 4 assists. But for those that may not remember him, obviously coming from Arkansas Pine Bluff last year, he averaged about 19.6 points per game, just over almost 10 rebounds a game and 4.5 assists. So like this is a guy, when you start talking about having the anchor, basically being a defensive anchor, that size and length and what he's able to do. This is a player that could really, really be of true benefit for Bethune-Cookman and just really what Reggie Theus wants to do with this program. I mean, when you talk about like a Reggie Theus program, you know you're going to get a physical team. You know you're going to get a team that's going to have a lot of athleticism too. So again, he fits the mold for this, and I think that it just really makes them just that much stronger in the interior and just basically from a defensive standpoint.
All right, we got Division II teams we need to show some love to. On the women's side, Winston-Salem State is rolling. Those Rams are rolling. Miles
Shout out
women.
to Coach Terry.
Hey, she's doing it. She is doing it. Salute to you, Coach. The Miles women, they're pretty tough too. Winston-Salem State's getting a lot of the attention. On the men's side, Virginia Union is still the team to beat, but there's this thorn in their side, Fayetteville State, who took them to the limit in overtime in Richmond, beat them pretty good at home coming back after Christmas. Fayetteville State, the men have scored over 100 points in the last 2 games that I saw. I might have missed their very last one, but when I filled out my poll, my HBCU Go Top 5 poll, Liv, I had a hard time ranking Fayetteville State. I was like, I can't fall into recency bias, but man, if you ask me who's the best team I've seen in the last 10 days, but it's all about your body of work. But I had a hard time ranking Fayetteville State. I didn't know I knew they were a top 5 team, but I didn't know exactly where to put them because they've been so hot lately.
Yeah, they're a team who's been hot and cold, and their last game they scored 117 points, which is absolutely insane. Like 117, that's, mind you, the other team scored 107, so absolutely no defense was being played in that contest. But they have been hot and cold, but I think what we've seen of them recent is the team we will see through the rest of the season. They've built a lot of consistency and momentum over these past 3 games. And shout out to Larry Howell, who's definitely leading them down that path. He just set a new career high. And he is their motor. He's their go-to. He can do it at 3 levels, and they've built around him. They know how to play defense. I mean, besides the 107, they know how to get stops when it matters and translate that to offense. So, like Wilton said earlier, you want to be hot at the right time. And with, the CIAA tournament happens in February. And so to build some momentum now, gain some wins, and build a solid foundation is very crucial. And they seem to have figured it out. And anyone who remembers when Coach Devin, who is the current Fayetteville State coach, was at Bluefield just last season, they led the nation in points per game, over 100 per game. So that's definitely his style of play, is the up and down. We want to score because people can't score more than us type of play. And so they've been phenomenal and very, very entertaining to watch. I will say that. If you love scoring, they're extremely entertaining to watch.
Yeah, that game against Bowie State was an offensive showcase. Bowie State had the play of the game. KJ West, man, he had this dunk that was as my co-host Jasmine said, he caught some bodies, multiple bodies on that dunk. Fayetteville State won the game though, but yeah, Division II basketball has been. Look, I know this. I'm a D2 guy. I've been around that level of play for a while, and it's just been a phenomenal year so far. If I give you one ticket, Liv, I just fly you out to wherever you want to go this weekend to an HBCU game. Where would you land?
I think if it's men, I think I would end up. Well, I have 2, and I know you asked for 1, but you can afford me 2 round trip tickets. I'm definitely heading to North Carolina Central versus Howard men, because this will be a true test for Central to see if they are who, everyone sees them as. And also shout out to UMES, because they're 3-0-2 under Cleo Hill to start play. But I definitely want to see how Central plays Howard. Howard's on a bounce back game. They dominated Del State. And so that should be a very good telling for both teams. And then, we talked about it earlier. If Joseph's back, I'm definitely heading to Jackson to watch that matchup, because again, I'm a scoring girl. Like, I love players who know how to score 3 levels. And so that is going to be one for the books and extremely, extremely entertaining. And then for women, I'm going to head to the rivalry game, which is Southern versus Grambling, because especially over the past few years, they have just given us, it didn't matter how their success was up to those moments. It's been end of the wire, extreme battles going at it, because it's that rivalry. It's the intensity. And that's what I love about HBCU rivalries. I know other ones are like that, but the HBCU rivalry ones are just so different, because teams could be on a 5-game losing streak, and suddenly they're going to come in and make every single shot they haven't made all year. And so that was definitely one women's game I would have to be at.
Wilton, I have a sneaky suspicion that you might be at Prairie View, Jackson State this weekend.
That is absolutely correct, Tolly. I promise you, if Joseph plays, like Liv said, if Joseph plays, man, like, this will be the game to watch. We basically will probably get a 2.0 of what we saw between, basically Jackson State and Alabama A&M.
Yeah, well, looking forward to it, and we will talk about it next week. Also, shout out to the Tuskegee men. They're off to a good start this year as well. Want to show them some love down at Tuskegee. All right, that's it for HBCU Game Day, for our HBCU Hoops Insider, Liv, and for our brand new full-time professor at Jackson State, Wilton Jackson, and for my son, who could not resist walking onto the set before we get out of here. Tell everybody goodbye, Noah. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, Noah says goodbye. We'll see you later next time.